away from Sunday night planning, and you said Mondays are like your most productive, and I think about every time, and I keep a paper planner. Like I've got my schedule for my really critical meetings are in my Outlook calendar, right? And all of my business meetings are in there. But every task, which as we know in this job, and when you've got, copy to be put in, and revisions for orders, and performance reports, and, new co-op things, like there's a million little tasks, right? Those tasks, like, have to be written out for me. I can't do that in an Outlook piece. I can't do that, like, in my mind. It has to be written out. But every time, if I look back at every year, I keep every year's planner. If I have a huge list on Monday that is spelled out for me almost like to the 15-minute mark, and I cross that off or I circle it if it needs to move forward, that's when I have my best performance. Like if I've taken an hour or two on Sunday night, I plan out my week. That Monday list may be crazy and it never all gets done on Monday. It's not possible. But my meetings are in there and every task is there. It gets moved forward in the rest of the week. That's how I'm most effective, and that's my system. But that's my planning, like, and having it ready for the week, doing all the pre-deciding is like, these are all the tasks that must get done. And during the week, more things get added to it. But that's the most efficient way for me to get my work done. It's like I have to have that list in front of me. But we'll decide if we want to keep moving, or we.
There was one that Vic said that he had a story about, and I have a story too. And his will suck, and mine would be great.
Well, I mean,
I'm just kidding.
It was the one about, for me, it was the one about moving on with is this a fit or is it not a fit, right? And the story that, jumps into my head is there are so many times where we see people that work here and you think, well, maybe they're not the best fit, or they're not fitting in, or they're not doing the work. Mm-hmm. And when they're not here anymore, you don't even miss them when they're gone, right? But, the person that I would refer to is Jess, right? Mm-hmm. And it's something I kind of learned along the lines of my career is, people generally fire themselves. We're not firing people. Mm-hmm. Their actions are what really is ultimately causing that decision to happen. But just throw that down right there. But the person that I would look at is Jess, right? She was somebody who we all liked. Mm-hmm. She was a great fit for us, at least from a culture standpoint. But, she wasn't able to sell anything that wasn't Applebee's, and
barbecue sauce.
Yeah, and that kind of stood out. But I actually ended up talking to Jess more recently. And when you let somebody go, it's like, oh, well, they're fired, they don't have a job. But, we're really releasing them mm-hmm. to do the rest of their life's work. And she said she went back to the TV station she was at. She's super happy, she developed a list, and the stuff she learned here has been helpful for her, growing her business. So really, we were probably holding her back almost selfishly, even though we knew maybe it wasn't a fit from a business standpoint. Yeah. That culture, we wanted somebody like that here.
She knew it too.
We're talking about the hard decisions, or do the right thing.
Doing the hard right.
The hard right. Yeah. There we go.
And but ultimately, a super tough decision. But then you see 4 months later, it really is worked out.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting.
I kind of think about that even when we're looking at other people, whether that's somebody like Adam or Robert. In the more recent sense, they just weren't a fit here. So there is a place that is a better fit for them. Yeah. And, I think the people in this room, and maybe you're not quite there yet, Pete, but we were talking about drinking the Kool-Aid,
It's hard not to.
It's hard not to here. It is hard not to here, but ultimately.
What flavor would that Kool-Aid be?
Well, I have no idea, but
Right, it's the best Kool-Aid flavor.
Which flavor?
Blue is way better than
blue raspberry.
No,
cherry. Everything should be cherry.
Oh my gosh.
Everything should be cherry.
Red?
I'm going pink.
If it's not cherry,
Pink lemonade? No grapes?
I like grape, yeah.
I mean, I figured grape would be a
Is that the blue one?
I mean, lemonade's not really Kool-Aid. That's country time.
Oh, country time.
It is good.
Q1 Media might be country time lemonade.
But as we see that we're drinking the Kool-Aid here, but it's because it's probably a fit from multiple sides.
We're also making the ingredients at the same time,
Ooh.
right? We're the ones that are,
Ooh,
we're building that, right?
True.
And there's a reason, so it's if you live it.
But we weren't building that. We were building it now, but we weren't building it when we first got here, right?
Probably right.
We had to
Well said.
we had to figure out a way to kind of fit into the recipe that was already here.
we had to figure out that we were the chefs.
You guys are getting so deep.
Yeah.
I have something with that.
They love
We,
Kool-Aid.
Did I interrupt you?
No, that's
So-
sort of
Did I
the.
interrupt your Kool-Aid?
All the
One thing that-
metaphors.
Do the right. What was it exactly?
Yeah, do the hard right.
Do the
Do the
hard
hard
right.
So, anybody that has kids,
Thank you.
Something I heard from somebody a long time ago, being a bad parent is easy, being a good parent is hard, right? And making those hard decisions in anything is hard. But I think what's more important that what I heard, not only from him, but I try to say, like, sometimes you have to make a hard decision, but if you can wait to make it, sometimes you don't have to make it. So his idea of pre-planning different things and getting to the point that he does his sermon on this date, this time, because he may have to make a decision between talking to somebody that needs help or doing his sermon, but he's got a couple of days to fit that in. That's something that I took away because, like, I always say to my wife, we'll deal with that when it comes. We got this. We got it.
Table it.
But I'm not sure I do after listening to him because the point of, at what point do you run out of time, run out of finances, run out of will, run out of whatever that is to do that? And I think that was one of the things that I took away is that although I agreed with him, do the hard right.
Yeah.
I didn't agree with him with all the planning because that causes me anxiety. But if I'm really doing some introspection, is that the right word? If I planned a little better, I'd be able to wait even longer to make that decision because now I have all that
You
extra
already know
time in there and nothing.
that
Does
extra
that make any
plan.
sense?
Yeah, because you already know what the other outcomes could be, right? In the planning,
Right.
you're thinking about the outcomes. So if you've already pre-planned for all the outcomes, that's actually, it wasn't from the podcast, but it was a lesson I learned a really long time ago. I was young, I was 21, and had my first house, right? So I got a mortgage, 21.
Mortgage
I'm in
at 21.
Yeah.
Crazy.
100% commission-based sales job, and I was doing some other like learning courses, like a Dale Carnegie type thing. And when I was doing it, it was ebbs and flows of commission sales work. And
They just said Carnegie wrong.
I didn't, if I didn't make that, like I had a mortgage, I had homeowners insurance, I had electric
That's
bills,
wild to me.
right? So what I ended up
How did
Like,
how
doing this
if you
course-
don't mind me asking, how did you 21 with a mortgage? I mean, that's
21.
what inspired you? I mean, what influenced you to do? Because I feel like I didn't have the right people
I think
around me
At
to.
that time, I had done
21.
You already graduated college?
I wasn't done yet. No, I had.
Oh, you were
I was
in
taking
college.
courses, but I was working full time. At the time, I was making great money, and I had saved up enough to that question,
Wow.
Amanda. I had saved up
That's a
enough
lot.
that I had like a chunk of change from my sales, and I was like, "What do I want to do with it?" So there was like a chunk, and I'm like, "I could do this. I could go travel. I could do these things." I'm like, "I should probably put it into something that's going to gain value." It was early 2000s. Decided to use that in down payment. Actually met with a realtor. He told me like, "Oh, you can't afford this condo." And I'm like, "Okay." Like immediate first meeting. He saw age. He saw like my money that I was going to put down, and he just blew it off. And I'm like, "Okay." I met with a second realtor that was all in, totally fine, which makes sense, right? She wanted to sell a house. Helped me through the process. I bought a single family house instead. It was fantastic. Deck, water view. It was beautiful. But then down the line, 2 years into owning this house, or maybe a little bit less, sales times go different. And I'm like, wow, I was stressed. I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I've got a mortgage to pay. I'm 21, right? I got a mortgage to pay. I've got bills to pay. Had a couple people that then were renting from me inside of the house, just people that were, staying. It was a 4-bedroom house. And one of the things in Carnegie's course about that stress and that planning, that I think your point, Matt, was like, there's a point where he takes you and it's like, what is the worst case scenario? What is the absolute worst case scenario? And if you can get yourself to that, what is the worst case? Okay, it's bankruptcy, it's you lose your house, you do it in that scenario, right? But in work, it's something different. In family, it's something different. With your kids, it's something different. What's the worst case? And if that worst case happened, what would you do? And once you know what
You
that
make
is,
those decisions.
yeah, and once you know what the worst case is and what your solution is, like, there's no stress, there's no anxiety. Like, I know if it all falls through the floor, like, I've got that. So here's what I got to do, and you're right back to the planning and the drawing board. So I
Well
think
said. That's what I was trying to say.
yeah, like, you know, worst
Really
case,
cool.
and then you're
Yeah,
able to get
well
right back
said.
out of it. So yeah, I think on doing the hard right, like, you did a great job. I think summarizing that, Vic, like, that's usually about making those really tough decisions. Sometimes that's in your family. Sometimes that's, I took that to a personal relationship. We've had a couple personal relationships with friends, right? With multiple, like, children that are friends with our kids, and, like, something's just off, right? Something happened, our kids are still fine, but, like, we were really tight, and, like, we just grew apart, different circumstances. But there's been this nagging piece with my wife and them and myself, like, what happened here? Like, nothing makes sense. And there was something in that podcast about doing the hard right that wasn't just work, making the right decision on an employee, but whether it's your kid or whether it's a friend or whether it's, like, an old friend, right? That something just went sideways. And it's the only part where he, like, brought God into it. But he said, do what's right and trust God with the results, right? Or trust whatever that is you believe with the results. Like, do what's right and let it be what it's going to be. And that hit me too, like, the third or fourth time I'm doing my workout and listening to this. I'm like, you know, outside of work and all the things I had to make a hard decision on people, why don't I take that advice with this family? Why don't I reach back out to them and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I think. Like, I don't know what happened, but this is what I feel. This is what I think happened. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. And let it go. Like, not be thinking about it, never worry about it again. Like, put it out there and let it be what it's going to be. But, like, stewing on it or thinking about it, like, that's never productive. Like, bring it to the surface. And in our job, it's everything else, right? Do the hard right. We made a mistake. We under-delivered. We ran the wrong copy. We've all been through that in past jobs. But how do we do it at Q1? If you make a mistake, do the hard right. Own it immediately. We messed up. We did this wrong. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. Come with the solution. And, like, how do you move forward? And they're going to respect you for it. And that friend, that family member may not respect you for it in the minute, but later on, shit's going to mend itself. They're going to go, wow, I was wrong. They came to me, like, it did make sense. And you move on. So there's always nuggets or tidbits.
He also says that, you know, as you grow and you meet more people and you have new friends, then your network increases and you realize, like maybe these friends aren't the best for me, and so you gravitate towards the ones that do make more sense for you. And you know, that's something that Chris and I, and even as a family, we try to practice more, because it used to be like we'd try to give as much attention to everybody in our life, whether they were a friend from growing up or even family. I hate to say it, but even family members that were toxic for us. Like, they were not lifting us up or bringing us up. They were always, like, very much bringing us down. Drama. Same thing goes with friends. But then the same thing, I would even say, goes in the workspace is,
Definitely.
you know, once you get past being a newbie and your network of clients and your experience with clients grows, you learn how to navigate and try to find those efficiencies or try to combat any negative instances that you have with those clients, or like toxic behaviors that they might have that they think they can get away with as clients. But then you find out, wow, this is actually a real problem. I'm not going to fix it. Yeah. And I have the power to control, like, working with this person. Right. I've had those clients that were literally, like, so needy and so, like, they treated me as if they were the total authoritative figure and I was just their servant. And then you realize, like, I don't have to put up with this. And actually, they're not making me a better worker with my other, or partner with these other clients that I have that actually are less work. They appreciate me more. Yeah. And so guess what? You can back off or even fire them, or fire is a strong word, but choose to separate and part ways. And then you can use your energy and your knowledge to go find new clients. And it's a hard pill to swallow, but it's like once you realize, like, I can do this and have confidence, then, and your network grows, then you can realize that. Yeah.
As you earn stripes, like, I think of, like, in the military, whatever, right? As you earn stripes, there doesn't have to be scars under there. Mm-hmm. They don't have to leave a mark, right? And once they start, and you'll learn this when you're getting married, and I got some advice. So that's-
Earn those scars.
but my point is,
Golly.
and I was told by a woman that said she had 3 daughters, 4 weddings, and I was getting married. This goes back a long time. The best advice she ever gave me, she said, Matt, make sure when you're inviting people to the wedding, invite people you want in your life in the future, not those that were in the past. And when you're thinking of that, when you're going, now, you're gonna have to talk to your mother and figure that fucking out. But
Yeah.
it made it really easy that when you get to that point, you're like, so-and-so, they invited me to their wedding. I don't give a fuck, I hate them, I never wanna see them again. Okay, they're off the list.
That is
It's-
a whole
that's-
thing.
But if you can adopt that, my
Yeah.
wife and I did to a point, and then then her mom said, this person has to be here. I'm like, I hate your uncle, but
Yeah.
you know, the uncle's fucking coming. Either
Well,
way.
so yeah, I was gonna say
Well,
some
she-
people
that
are.
was non-negotiable.
No.
But there was some people, Greg McCullough didn't have to come to the wedding. You know what I mean? Like, dude, he brought us to his
Right.
wedding.
Fuck Greg McCullough.
Fucking Greg.
Probably the biggest thing, as you go into your wedding is maybe not quitting your job right before it.
Is that what you did? Wait, who did that?
You?
You did it.
Your email.
You already forgot? You put in your explanation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say too. Yeah, that is funny. Doing the hard right reminds me of this quote from college. Probably one of my favorite quotes I've heard in person. Where I said earlier I was studying saxophone, so I had a saxophone professor who mentored me. When he said, "It sounds like you practice the things that you're really good at, and not the things you're bad at." And the really good saxophone players are the ones who kick their own asses and practice the things they're bad at. And that's sort of something I like.
Wow,
really
resonated.
remembered. Yeah, for like 12, 13 years or whatever it is now.
Yeah.
Like doing the hard things when you're not good at them and getting better at them, as opposed to just like, oh, I'm really, I can.
Good at these scales.
Yeah,
Especially
do
if
whatever.
you're capable of it.
Right.
Then there's almost no excuse.
Right.
Right? I mean, not if you really desire whatever that outcome is, right?
Yeah. I think there's always 2 sides of the coin on that one too, right? Like I hear that analogy a lot, and it depends on how good you are at the good things and how far those things that you're great at can take you, right?
Right.
Like, I see that analogy in soccer a lot, and some of these guys, like, they want you to be good at everything, right? And you gotta be to saxophone or to work. Like Q1's a perfect example. There's no way that you're gonna be the best at all 12 tactics, right? Or all 15 tactics, or all, of our core 10 tactics. There's no way. So figure the things out that you're really good at. Ask for the help, maybe, is the hard right. Sometimes that's the hard part, right? Is asking for the help that you need. And we talked a lot at the beach today about how supported the structure is, but be really freaking good at 2 or 3. And that's what we teach the boys, at this youth level. You're really good with these 2 or 3 skill moves, own them.
Mm-hmm.
Be the best at these, because if you try to be real good at all of them, you're not going to be great at any of them. Be great at 3, be great at 4, know your tactics here really well, be a great dad, a great coach, be those people, but you're not going to be able to be a great employee, a great dad, a great coach, a great volunteer, and the 5th and 6th thing, you can only do 3 or 4 things well.
Yeah.
So find the 3 or 4 that you're really good at, the 3 or 4 tactics that you can explain better than anybody, and own them, so that number 1, you're going to crush it on an agency meeting. But when Matt needs me, I can be that guy. So when I need Matt for EDU, I can grab Matt for EDU. When I need Vic for a whole different industry, I can grab him. And when I need Sam, I'm disorganized as heck. I know I need to plan better, and I just need to bounce that idea off of her. I'm going to grab my type A Philly friend to bring me back to that.
I'm not going to, because you would scare me away from
But yeah, it's,
That would give you anxiety.
Oh, yeah, fuck that.
but I think
The thing about me is I always have anxiety. So.
there's 3 of these, and we're only getting to 4. So I'd say if we talk about the first leadership part, we can leave the other half.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we can eat. But the last thing, because the other ones, there's a lot of really good stuff, but it's you first leadership. I think we do a really, really good job of that here. And because of that, there's probably not a lot of time to spend on it, other than the way that we communicate, right? The way that we communicate with each other, the way that you communicate if you're a leader, if I'm a mentor, or as Pete grows here and as Sam grows here, and you're communicating with the the other reps, I think we do such a good job building each other up that it's inherent in our culture, but in a lot of places it's not. So when they talked about that you first leadership or letting someone in the door first, like you're, you know, that kind person says, oh no, you first, like you go ahead, is how do you lead with that? And everybody, I think, no one heard David Goggins, but everybody's heard of Simon Sinek. Maybe.
I'm gonna say yes because I'm not embarrassed.
No, I don't.
Dropping
Nope.
names today, sir.
Nope.
Yes.
But maybe there
Who
should
the
be
fuck
some.
do you- What do you
Alright.
do in your
America.
spare time?
Wow,
You
all
always
right.
do a
So,
lot of podcasts, man.
so no, I brought this. I found
Bilbo
the guy.
Baggins and
Oh, I know
Simon
that.
Says.
Everybody else here, everyone else knows Simon Sinek because we talked about your why at the beach.
Oh, okay,
Simon
okay.
Sinek is
Is
the creator
the-
of Find
yep.
Your Why. Like that was his thing. So
Yep.
like
Simon
from
Cowell,
YouTube
yeah.
way back.
Simon
You
Cowell.
dummies.
Yeah.
Simon Cowell.
There's no buzzer here for you for that. But super famous on the Find Your Why. Like, he really does a ton of great. Find Your Why was really about leadership too, but you could internalize that. And he did a really big thing on leadership. He does a great study on that, a huge TEDx talk on it. But the one thing that he says is the leaders who get the most out of their people are those that care the most about the people. And it's a quote that was in the podcast, but it comes directly from Simon Sinek. And I think we all know that. Like the leaders that didn't care about you, that don't show you at all that they care about you, you don't want to work for them. You work for a
None of
paycheck.
us work for them anymore.
No, you work for a paycheck in those environments. You're there for the money, you're there
Yeah.
for the time, for the dollar, and that's it. But when you have a leader that cares and they are right behind you, they're pushing you, they're pulling you, whatever it is that you need at that moment to get you forward, you're gonna give them the most. And outside of that, like the thing that I took, I think we all know that. They talk about the best leaders help you see why you're important, right? And everything's so easy for me to translate from work and the way I used to work with reps to the way I work with kids. And I had some kids the other night at practice, like a real life example is I've got boys like they're so into it, and I've talked to a lot of you about it. Like these boys are like top 1% in the country of soccer players at a really young age. They'll be top 10 in the country probably by the end of the spring. They're that good. And they're still 9-year-old boys. Like when they get done practice, they want to goof off, they want to slam shots at each other in goal. And we've just been working on like highly technical, high tactical movements and how we're going to play. And we got a huge tournament and they want to goof off where I can't lose them. And rather than saying, get out of the goal, get out of here, you can't go, I go and I have an individual conversation with Lincoln. I go and I have an individual conversation with Sawyer, that are my two most important backs, and say, Link, when you're over there, have shots, dude. Have fun when you're done with practice. Have fun. Please don't be jumping around. Don't hurt each other. Don't go stand in goal. I can't have you hurt because without you, this team is not the same team. Sawyer, the same is for you. Without you, we're not the same team, and we wouldn't be. So the way that you can communicate things differently to them and let people know that they're important and start with you're important, you're amazing at this role, you do really well, and I want to thank you. He talks about that in the podcast instead of like, hey, I want to thank you. You're doing such a good job, and you start with I instead of you. Like you're extremely important to this team.
I really like that.
And I want to thank you. And how do you start your language? How do you start your email communication with like you and you're important and why they're a big part of the team? So
I liked the question too because it's easy to just say like to start anything with an I, right? Or even in an email and a
I was thinking about,
conversation.
like, client communication.
Yeah, client communication.
I
That's
need to
what.
do so much better with that after like
I
listening
need
to
this, I want this, I have to have that.
How does it start with you?
You have to just reframe it. You
Yeah.
have to.
I'm always
Flip it
paranoid
so that-
about the you though, because the you comes. I did actually implement what you said with one of our soccer players, like exactly what you did. You know, I said like you're amazing the way you're running all over the field, but
Yeah.
we don't need you to run all over the field. We need you to, you know, save your legs and be strong in this position.
Yeah.
You know, can you?
Yeah.
You know, can you do that? But then I, you know, also get to the point where I think like, you know, when you're trying to have a direct conversation with somebody using terms like we and how we work together and, you know, that team environment, whereas if you say like, well, I didn't like the way you were doing this, you know, so it's very important in the framing of
The delivery of the message is that negative
Yeah.
message that you're delivering is a positive. If it's
Right.
positive being you, when it's negative, how do you soften it? Like
Right.
you said, that's where it becomes
that's
we.
yeah.
Or maybe that's where it reverses, right? If it's negative, it's I. Like, I really want to see you succeed. it's almost reversed, right? If it's
Yeah,
positive,
right,
it's
right.
you. If it's negative, it's
It's
I.
Yeah.
and then
And you have to reverse it to soften that message to get it across. Like, you know, we want to see you succeed here sounds totally different than like, you're not going to succeed if you don't do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, framing is everything. Like, is it positive? Keep it you. Like, honor like what they're doing really, really well. If it's negative, you gotta like fall on your own sword. Like, take it on you. Show them that like you care. Like, I really want to see you succeed. It's important to me that like you're your best. Like, how can you communicate that like it's gonna hurt my feelings if you don't do well. Like, I'm going to feel bad if you're not at your potential. But I think it's almost in reverse. Like, you is positive, I is if it's negative, right?
I forget which company I learned this from, but they had a phrase just for this type of discussion where you start the conversation, did well, what did you do well, and then next time, as in for next time, here's what you can do to do it a little better, etc. Instead of being like, you did this badly, you did it well, maybe next time let's add this to it, instead of just saying you did this poorly or whatever.
Or
It's kind of like that feel, felt, found.
yeah,
It is.
I use that all the time.
Or use the ask, right? Like you said, you start with the positive, like, you did this really, really well. Instead of like giving them the answer to your thing, like, maybe we wait on this, like, whatever it was we were on, like, we wait on this and it'll work itself out. Sometimes
you're
that's
gonna have to make the decision.
Sometimes that's fishing, right? It's giving them the line.
Yeah.
Let them go and make the decision. So in that same conversation, rather than giving them the answer, it's like, you did really, really well here. If we did it again, what would you do differently? And ask and see if they find that answer themselves, or they might find something totally different that they want to do, and then insert that other little piece. But it takes patience, right? That takes patience to let your daughter make a mistake and let her learn from it, knowing that she's going to make a mistake, knowing she's going to have a bad experience with it. But if you rescue her, she's not going to learn. Or that person like telling them, but maybe they don't receive it as well as it being their own idea by saying, you did this really well, but if you had to do it again, would you do anything different? Not what would you do, because that infers like, hey, there's something I think you should do, but would you do anything different? And let them like come up with that idea themselves.
I think that can also, it kind of plays off of the last one, or the second one, where you have to sometimes make those hard decisions or have those hard discussions. By reframing it, it could make it a little bit easier to have, because you don't feel as like much pressure or guilt or whatever emotion that you have tied to making that decision, because you're orienting it in a way where it's like, hey, they're gonna receive this better, in a different manner than if I were to just come straight at them. Like, you're being thoughtful behind the delivery.
How much of it do you think is nature versus nurture, right? Like, in what you're saying in terms of, let's take this example of just reframing something, right? How much of that comes with who we are and our DNA and our makeup and our upbringing, all the things we had until we got to that discussion, and how much you think is calculated, like this guy in the podcast is, he said, I wasn't good at this. I had to learn to be more sympathetic, empathetic, understanding, realize there's other things in life that people are dealing with. I was surprised to hear him say that, because, I mean, I guess for somebody that had it all together to say, Jesus, I really sucked at this, and I had to learn it, which is that nurture thing, right?
Yeah.
Was it?
Or
no.
no.
I mean,
it's different for everyone.
Yeah. I am like, and Sam can attest to this, like, I tend to be the factual, here's what it is and here's what we're working on. And even when I write an email to a client or something, I have to go back and then write like, Happy Monday, Happy Tuesday.
Throw in the fluff.
Like, the edges off.
Happy Tuesday's not a fucking thing, man. Tuesday sucks.
Hope your week's starting off well.
Yeah.
I said Happy Tuesday today, Vic.
Yeah.
That's super funny, because as a
We're at the beach.
female,
It is a happy Tuesday.
It is for me.
as a professional female, there was a meme going around for a while. It
Were
was
you
like,
not a professional female before?
No.
It's something that she learned.
She was an
over
amateur female.
Yeah.
We all learned this over time.
It's just now I'm a professional lady.
She's a lady.
As a lady in profession.
Whoa.
There's this like concept of and Branda, I don't know if you do this, but like you go back and you look at your emails and you make them more assertive and more.
Yep.
What would a man say in this? Oh, he wouldn't put an exclamation.
Yes, I delete
So, like,
exclamation points.
Yes, I do too all the time.
Oh,
I
Jesus. I use it
Or
constantly.
Yeah.
or
Thank
I'll
you,
say
exclamation
something
mark.
that, or I'll say like Happy Monday, and I'm like, why am I saying that? A man wouldn't say that.
I
He'd
say
get
that.
right to the fucking point.
Ha-
So, but it's funny that you're saying that because I'm hearing something that like we are innately kind of like that's innateness, and now we're kind of.
But you want to
talking
put your
the opposite.
tone and like how you would
And
speak.
you want to be.
But then you also
a girl
want to
boss,
be.
Or how could you have a lady that's a boss?
Hey, wait, by the way, should we text that guy so he can pick us up?
We do have his number. Let's
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's been
and rough him
on
up.
here. But it's
Only
just,
come
it
if
is-
you have hits.
It is funny that you say that because I've never really heard a man who's just like matter of fact and to the. I have to try to be emotional in my correspondence, my professional correspondence.
And
It's
I've
just
found
interesting.
we test emails here all the time, and in prospecting. But I feel like I test them a lot with looking for responses from active clients, looking for responses on proposals that are out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that are very, very like matter of fact and to the point of like, is there an answer on this yet? If you go that direct, right, they're not getting a response. If you don't have some type of empathy and you don't round off those edges, I feel like you get the quick negative response. Like we need more time.
Yeah,
We
because
haven't
you're
gotten
setting the
that yet.
stage you're setting the
Right.
tone.
It's
Yeah.
is
You're
there
asking
You're
it.
also asking for an A or B answer.
Yeah.
yeah
You're not leaving it open ended for.
Yeah.
yeah instead of like the you first, right? There's a you first message in that, and like, hey, I want to make what I do a lot of that. I'll soften it with the Happy Tuesday. I'll soften it with like, hey, I hope you had a great weekend, or hey, I know it's middle of the week, things are probably crazy, right? There'll be a short
What'd you say
softening
on
statement in the
Thursday?
beginning, but then I will say
Over the hump! Exclamation point.
Yeah, no, I'm
But
not
do
gonna
you
go
have
that
to?
route.
Do you have to go back like him to do that, or do you start with it?
No, I take
and
it.
I'm not saying
No,
one's
it's a
right or
good
wrong.
point.
I'm
I
genuinely
usually
asking.
start that way now, but I'm thinking about it consciously when I do it.
Okay.
And
And
that's
I'll
where
think
I've
of-
gotten to.
I'll consciously think, all right, how do
So
I
it
want
becomes
this
muscle memory at some point.
to be
right?
you
Hopefully.
first?
Right?
And I'll
And
say,
it's so funny because
I want to make
will,
sure we have everything ready for you
I
instead
will
of is it
initially
there
do
an
it
answer?
and then I'll delete it.
Yeah, and, it's,
And
but
not all the
that's
time.
sad,
Not
like-
all the time.
I think it
But I'm
depends.
saying I double.
Yeah.
You have to
I
think
do
about
double
like what
think
you're
it.
trying to accomplish with
Yeah.
the email.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
It's all
but
in
like
who you're
I,
communicating though too, right? Like if you're
Yes.
talking to Tierney,
but I
And-
am more aware of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you also
it's-
don't want to seem like overly like that person.
I don't want to have.
You
I
want
don't
to
want
be
excited.
perfect. Yeah, you want to be.
Oh,
I used
want
to see
everything
emails with like exclamation points in it,
Used
and I'd catch. I used to think like,
to. Oh.
what's with all the exclamation points? Why are you like
me.
super excited? Send whatever.
I do a million
But
of them.
but
Yeah,
but
thanks
I
so
put
much.
too
I
many in
appreciate
there
you.
now,
Yeah.
and I'm like, wait a minute. I
It's
have
just a way
two
to
lines where
express-
there's exclamation
We're
points.
like
Let's pull something
Well,
back.
2/3
How
of
am
the
I-
sentences in my
Yeah,
have exclamation
The
points.
reason I'm asking
It's like a
is because-
positivity thing.
Yeah.
It is.
I
It
tried
is.
it.
It's showing more positivity.
And do
Yeah,
like that
I think more
emojis
than
are a
anything.
little bit more
Yeah.
acceptable because it's like I
A
want you
smiley
to know
face
that I'm
is fine.
saying this with a smile.
Yes. So that
Not
because
out loud,
tone can
right?
be
Yeah.
completely
LOL.
missed on email.
LOL.
Yeah, LOL, I don't know if I use that one yet.
I haven't used
Not
that.
there yet.
Well, because
I use haha.
I've tried to like just complete. I think that when you work in a place and your friends and your family and all those things align and everything's going in the right direction, right? It's like you're sailing with the wind, right? Personally, professionally, and all that stuff. And you can be yourself, right? You found something. And the minute you gotta not be yourself in some reason, I'm not saying you don't chop the edges off or you
Yeah.
don't think through because you
That's
are
just being a
empathetic or
professional,
sympathetic or
right?
just trying to be professional.
Yeah.
But I find that oftentimes I'm trying to just be me and let that emotion come out of who I am and the excitement or whatever that is.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad. That's why I was asking, right?
I had the same thought in my head. Like, trying to be yourself as much as you can be is important. Like, there is an email that I've sent out that it has 100% response rate, and like out of the 5 times I've sent it, I think 4 of the people are actually purchased stuff from us. And the title of the email was Cupcakes, I Missed You. You know, and it's bringing in some form of humor.
Yeah, that's
You know, that just
I hear you say. I heard your voice when you said that. I mean, obviously you said it, but if I was to read it, I would hear your voice.
Right.
And is there
you
a
know,
dash?
Have you
or
tried
are
have you
or
tried
does it
cookies?
look like,
ellipses, cupcakes, ellipses, I missed you.
okay.
You
'Cause
know,
I was-
And
I was
you give them cupcakes?
wondering if you were calling
it's
them
when
cupcakes.
I was at the
Oh,
office
drop
and I
off.
left cupcakes there.
Yeah.
And then I'm following up. I'm sorry I missed you the other day. I left cupcakes at the office.
That's what I'm talking
You
about.
know, and, you know, blah blah blah. I'm sure they didn't make it to you. You know, like that's when you like kind of bring a little bit of.
All right,
personality.
so we can just drop the mic here because I mean Vic's figured this all out.
Yes.
Let's go. Let's go.
No, I mean, but where it's going is like just being inside, like
Wait, didn't you say 100% success?
being true to who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're finding
4
the
out of
humor
5
in it.
times.
4 out of
Kind of
5.
like the dentists. We'll convert the other one soon.
But it
Who's the
is.
other
It's,
4 out of 5 dentists before the weekend.
There's your girl.
This brings the
Jessica.
Yeah.
Jessica Simpson.
It's your girl?
We were
you
talking
wanted to
about
know how
earlier.
she ended up after the Britney and Christina Aguilera thing. The trifecta of.
Oh, she makes shoes.
Don't we all?
And clothes.
Yeah,
Didn't-
she's rolling in it.
yeah, she's
But yeah.
her shoes are good. I like the Jessica
She made
Simpson.
me.
So now I see why the podcasts were 2 parts, and it was the first 4, and then it was the last 4. But I really think that the first 4 were probably the most
I agree.
powerful. The other pieces are all pretty easy. I wouldn't even spend a lot of time on them. I think the other part that I
You
wrapped
didn't
up
even
with
spend a lot of
is
time on them.
no, and
It was like
30 minutes
less.
on there.
It was like 20 minutes as opposed to 30.
The other stuff is doing all the right things, right? But I would say the only other thing that I kind of grouped together out of the last 4 to wrap maybe the whole conversation, finally get some food in our stomachs, is like there's the grit part, right? That he talks about at the end, and that's where, you know, certainly Sam and Pete and myself really still are, is the grind and the grit that it takes to keep taking the no's, keep taking the hits, keep taking all the activity it takes to get there. This job absolutely requires that. We talked plenty about, you know, doing 1 more rep. That's easy, right? That's sending 1 more email at the end of the day. That's sending 1 more LinkedIn message. That's making 1 more call. That's making 1 more contact in our world.
And it's
Hey,
after
that-
you've already touched the
That
line, which is the other
directly
one.
relates to the grit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
I think the showing back up is the grit and the perseverance. He's got a ton of quotes around that, and I'll knock these out in an email and send it back to you guys. Feeling the fire thing, I think, is the hardest one
It is.
to bring back in.
I don't remember that. Was it?
It's
that
where you
would
have to
Fueling or
like.
fueling.
It's basically saying like you have to inspire others, but you really have to like inspire yourself, and you have to like figure out a way, and not just inspiration or not just like not just motivation. You have to like fully
Be in.
Yeah,
be
but-
inspired, and
Think about
that's
it
kind
like
of
a
tough.
fire, right? It's exactly like a fire. I didn't hear this one, and I didn't hear his description, but
You're almost spot on.
Yeah, you are.
But like,
Get some
if you
lighter
if
fluid.
you put too much fuel on it, you're gonna snuff the fire out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to maintain that balance, and it has to be consistent.
Yeah.
You know, for it to keep going.
Mhm.
You know, and otherwise it's not there.
Yeah, he. I thought where you were going with the fire. He actually had a direct quote in that one, even though you didn't listen to it, and
Yeah.
it was.
Well,
very
everything's a direct
similar,
quote when
but
you don't listen to it.
It definitely related more about probably to him being a pastor in religion, but it was that like a guy that had shared with him like it's about inspiration versus motivation, and if you light yourself on fire with passion, like the direct quote was something along those lines. If you light yourself on fire with passion, people will drive for miles to watch you burn.
Yep.
And that's
Or you
that's
should
in-
stop, dropping,
You will
roll.
bring people to
Right.
you, like
That's
you will.
just a positive attraction.
Yeah.
Right? And it's having like the enthusiasm that I think we all have for the products that we have. If you can keep that enthusiasm high for what we do at Q1, the enthusiasm to have Matt on a call with me or have Vic on a call with me, and that we're going to bring new ideas and solutions they don't have, they're locked in. Like they're going to watch you burn. They're there to watch you and listen and see the new tactics.
In a good way, in a good way, in a good way, in a
To
good way.
see you guys talk about
Fire.
what we
The
do.
proverbial fire.
Not watch you
Watch
crash.
you die.
Or watch you crash and burn if you don't know what I'm talking about. But
And then it's still entertaining. So.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, that was a horrible call.
Somebody
Yeah.
else, it's you, no.
So if it's their client, man, you
Yeah.
forget it.
So I think the very last piece was do one more rep, and that's not about all those calls. The last thing that I took out of that was what we do in the day-to-day that I think gets lost sometimes. And I think that it's not Sam and it's not Pete's role, but it's starting to get into where my role is. It might be where Vic and where Matt and maybe Brianda, where we've been doing this. Now I've been doing it well over 2 years. You've been much longer. Matt and Brianda much longer, where we're doing the same things. Like a lot of times we're bringing in different pieces. We're finding a little bit new audience. We're trying to find new tactics. But for the most part, we're churning and burning plans, and we know what worked, and we know what tactics work well. So it's easy for us to churn those out. But are we not just doing the extra rep? Are we going the extra mile? Are we providing like a really good proposal? Are we providing one more good idea? Are we putting like a cherry on that proposal to make it look good and stand out from those other DSP competitors that might be in there, or that other agency partnership competitor that might be in there? Are we doing something to make us look better than someone else?
I think it's also like checking. We need to be more mindful of checking ourselves as we go. And I've had to catch myself, and I feel like it's always around this time of year, because I've learned that I have a lot of clients that stay with me year over year. Like they're literally like, I can name 5 off the top of my head that like I know they're not going anywhere unless I go somewhere or unless they go somewhere. Like that's just what it is. And they are fine. They trust me 1,000%. Like without a doubt, if they were to say, hey, same budget as last year, or hey, we have this much more, like, what would you do with it? They wouldn't even think twice. But it's actually, and it would be easy for me to say, oh, CTV's trending, let's put some more in CTV. But it takes that extra like rep to go back in, to set up a call with your AO and to say, hey, I want to analyze the data from this past year, and maybe we reallocate some of those budgets to these other line items, these other tactics, and maybe we introduce a new tactic.
Do the hard right.
And we do but it's also a mixture of doing the hard right, but also doing a mixture of doing that extra rep. And so like when I was listening to that, that's what really resonated with me was this time of year, it's most relevant for all of us to take that into consideration.
What would Bill say if you got the same order as you got last year from the same customer the same way?
Oh, I mean,
the same thing. And
yeah,
we built
no.
this business on
We're
not doing
no, and we're
Like,
preaching
that's
incremental right now.
That's it's everything against what he would say and Matt would say. I mean, I'm just picking Bill as
Right.
as him being, one of the figureheads at the top, or the figurehead at the top, I guess, any way you look at it. But he would say, did you do the work? So first time we met, I said, you said, Matt, how do you do what you do? I said, you do the work.
Yeah.
After that, everything, if you don't do the work, nothing happens. If you do the work, you can do all the wrong shit.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, it's easy, I was talking
But
to
talk about it too. Tell your client, I set up a meeting. Like let them know, hey, I am all in. Because who is it that it's you? We talk about this all the time. Where like you don't always, I want you to tell me. I've had this conversation with I think every single one of y'all. Where it's like I want y'all to tell me when you're doing things that I don't see, like things behind the curtains, so that I can understand that, so I can recognize that. And it's important that you tell people that, whether it's me or Brenton or the agencies.
Connecting the dots.
Yeah,
You do something
connecting the
for
dots.
Somebody, you do something for a client, you tell them, because they're gonna expect it next time and not even think it was cool.
Right,
The
right.
fact that you,
That's what makes us better than our competition.
and if you don't tell them,
We do the pre-strategy research.
right, yeah.
We do the look backs. We do the forecasting where we get all the audience segments before, where like if you just tell them you did that rather than adding it to the actual proposal where you can send the data segments all listed out and organized and like, hey, do you want to include all these or do you want to exclude or do you want to add to this? Like that's what makes those relationships more sticky. And you need to voice that you're doing these extra things because they don't see that. They don't see the day-to-day and the ins and outs that we do to like perfect their campaigns or to even build their proposals, that is way above and beyond what we would ever think about doing in our past lives.
Who else is in the trade desk at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night pulling audience?
Dating,
segments,
yeah, exactly.
right, to set up the next day, because
Yeah.
you call somebody else and they're like, well, I'm just going to tell my ad ops team that they want to reach people that are kind of like this.
Yeah.
And the CPM is X.
Yeah.
Like, not the difference, yeah.
I,
Cool.
you know, there's nothing I hate worse is when they send it over. Our audience is 25 to 54, and it's like,
Wow.
well, that's great. Are you telling me a 55-year-old won't do this, or a 56-year-old? Why are we, or a 24-year-old? Like, is this just?
And they're not in market for
Yeah.
anything.
You're not buying broadcast TV.
Yeah.
Broadcast media demographic. Well, what are the segments within that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
age
What,
range?
what do you
Who
want
is
them
that
to be
person?
interested in? What have
Yeah.
you purchased in the past? What would make them more likely to come to you? And that's
See, that's one of those moments right now how you would do it, probably similar to the way I think most of us would. We'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Really great. What's the landing, like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
Would it be okay if I put together something that
Yeah.
I feel is off the charts? You don't have to tell them it's off the charts because you know it is, right?
Mhm.
To your point, right? You just can't rubber stamp it. You
No.
know? We're not like,
But you have to check yourself to remind.
well, it's easy,
It's
right?
it's easy to
I
just
said
go.
earlier today, I get these blank IOs. You know, the $850,000 had nothing on it.
Yeah.
Matt, what should I put on the IO? I'm like, talking about it since February. What do you mean what should you put on it?
Yeah.
Right? But like, it was easy for me to say,
And you got an old plan that you could probably just take and repurpose and change the name and
but you know, to your point, right? Because this is the time of year where you're going to get those.
you are. We're gonna have a lot of those
Your
conversations. The
needs
annuals are
and if
gonna
you
come
know
up.
them, It's easy, just especially around Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's like, oh, it's here, it's here. I don't want to go back and talk about it because I don't want to resell something to the
No.
sold.
And you're busy because you're doing like 10 IO or
But
10
you don't want to
proposals.
cancel in February because it sucks ass.
Yeah.
It's the other side of it, right?
Or it fell flat. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Well,
thank you, Anthony.
Sucks ass
Yeah.
is another way to say
But
it.
that's-
Fell flat. Fell flat.